We send rovers to Mars. We build skyscrapers that touch clouds. We brag about being the richest nation on Earth. And yet, right now, as you're watching this, millions of Americans are living without running water. Not camping. Not by choice. Permanently. This is water poverty, the condition of having no reliable access to clean, piped water in your home. And it exists in every single state in this country. We're not talking about Flint, Michigan. That story got its headlines. We're talking about the places nobody films. The dirt roads. The outhouses. The children who've never seen water come from a tap. The forgotten corners of America that look less like the land of opportunity and more like the slums of Sao Paulo. Welcome to America's hidden favelas. And trust me, you're not ready for what's next. Let's break it down. Number 7. East Rossi, California. Drive in our southeast of Fresno, past the endless rows of almonds, grapes, and citrus worth billions, and the pavement just ends. Welcome to East Rossi. The transition is jarring. 1 minute you're passing irrigation systems so advanced they're controlled by satellites. The next, you're on cracked dirt roads lined with single-wide trailers sagging into the earth. Stray dogs wander between rusted cars. Children play in yards that are more dust than grass. The air smells like fertilizer and something else, something sour. This is the agricultural irony of California. The people who pick the food that feeds America can't get clean water to drink. East Rossi looks like a settlement, not a town. And that's because, functionally, it is one. East Rossi is home to roughly 500 people, almost all of them Latino farm workers and their families. The community has been struggling with contaminated or unreliable water for over 3 decades. A 2019 state report found that their water system violated safe drinking water standards for years, with nitrate levels that regularly exceed federal limits by double. Nitrates. In case you're wondering, that's what happens when decades of agricultural runoff fertilizers, pesticides, animal waste seeps into the groundwater. The very industry that surrounds this town is poisoning the people who make it run. Imagine waking up and not being able to turn on your tap. Or worse, turning it on and watching brown sludge sputter out. That's life in East Rossi. Families here buy bottled water by the case, not for convenience, but for survival. They drive 20 minutes to fill jugs at water dispensers in town. They ration. A shower becomes a weekly event, not a daily one. Dishes pile up. Laundry is done in batches, hauled to laundromats miles away. One mother described boiling water for her children's baths, not to warm it, but hoping heat might kill whatever's in it. It doesn't. The nitrates don't care. Nitrate contamination isn't just unpleasant, it's deadly, especially for infants. It causes a condition called methemoglobinemia, or blue baby syndrome, where the blood can't carry oxygen properly. Long-term exposure in adults is linked to thyroid problems, certain cancers, and birth defects. And yet, people here have been drinking this water for years. Skin rashes are common. Stomach problems are a given. One resident said her doctor told her to stop drinking the water. She laughed. With what money am I supposed to buy bottled water for 5 people every day? California has known about East Rossi's water crisis for years. Reports have been filed. Studies have been conducted. Grants have been discussed. And yet, the water still runs brown. Why? Because East Rossi is unincorporated, meaning it has no city government, no tax base, no political power. The county says it's the state's problem. The state says funding is complicated. Meanwhile, less than 10 miles away, pristine water flows freely through corporate-owned orchards that generate millions in revenue. The infrastructure exists. The money exists. The will does not. When your residents are poor, brown, and don't vote in large numbers, you become administratively invisible. One farm worker, a man who's lived in East Rossi for 22 years. Put it bluntly, they spray chemicals on the grapes all day, and those grapes get washed with clean water before they ship. But my kids drink poison. We pick the food for America's tables, and America doesn't care if we die doing it. That's the deal. We always knew that was the deal. And if East Rossi is agricultural irony, the next location is what happens when federal bureaucracy creates a black hole of accountability. Spoiler, people fall through. Number 6. Cochiti Lake Area, New Mexico. The drive to the Cochiti Lake area is deceptively beautiful. Red rock mesas, pippin pines, that vast spiritual New Mexico sky. You'd think you were heading to a retreat, maybe a wellness resort. Then you turn off the main road and reality fractures. The homes here aren't homes, they're patchwork structures, some adobe, some trailer, some both welded together with corrugated metal. There are no fire hydrants, no sidewalks. The roads are unpaved and washboard rough. And everywhere, you see the telltale signs of water poverty, blue plastic barrels stacked on porches, strapped to truck beds, line up like soldiers waiting for a battle that never ends. This is what happens when you fall between jurisdictions. The communities scattered around Cochiti Lake, including parts of Pepa Blanca and surrounding unincorporated areas, sit in a bureaucratic no-man's land. Some are adjacent to Cochiti Pueblo land. Some are near Federal Bureau of Reclamation territory. Some are technically county. The result: an estimated 1,500 to 2,000 residents with either no water system at all, or one so decrepit it barely functions. Many have relied on hauled water for 30 years or more. The lake itself holds millions of gallons, but the people who live in its shadow can't access a single drop. Water hauling is a way of life here. Twice a week, residents drive 15 to 25 miles to fill the 150-gallon tanks at filling stations, paying anywhere from $20 to $50 per trip. The tanks sit in truck beds or on trailers, sloshing on the rough roads back. Once home, the water is pumped into storage barrels, then rationed with military precision. A family of four might use 50 gallons a day compared to the average American household S300. Toilets are flushed sparingly. Showers are fast and cold. Washing machines are luxuries. One elderly woman described carrying 5-gallon buckets from her storage barrel to her kitchen sink every single day for the past 18 years. She has arthritis in both shoulders now from carrying water. In America, stored water breeds bacteria. Without proper treatment, those big blue barrels become Petri dishes free. Coli, Giardia, and coliform bacteria. Residents report chronic gastrointestinal issues, stomach cramps, diarrhea, nausea that they've simply learned to live with. Dental problems are rampant because people can't afford enough water to brush properly, or because the water they have damages enamel. Skin infections flare up during dry months when people stretch their water supplies even thinner. And here's the cruel irony: many residents are elderly, having moved here decades ago for the peace and the landscape. Now they're too old to haul water and too poor to leave. Ask the county why these people don't have water, and you get a shrug. It's complicated. The land ownership patchwork, federal, tribal, private, county, creates a jurisdictional nightmare. The Bureau of Reclamation says it's not their responsibility. The county says extending water lines would cost millions and benefit to few taxpayers. The state says funding is earmarked for other priorities. Tribal authorities, already stretched thin managing their own water crises, can't absorb neighboring communities. So everyone points fingers, and no one digs pipes. There's been talk of a water project since 2006. It's still just talk. A retired teacher who moved here in 1998 said this: "When I bought this land, the realtor swore water lines were coming any day now. 25 years later, I'm still hauling." I wrote my congressman once. Got a form letter back about water conservation tips. Conservation? I use less water in a week than his office toilet uses in a day. But sure, tell me to take shorter showers. And if Cochiti Lake is a bureaucratic void, the next place is what happens when the money leaves and takes everything with it, including hope. Number 5. McDowell County, West Virginia. Driving into McDowell County feels like entering a well.
Here at the end of the street are a few other interesting buildings I'll show you.
American coal country, a place where men descended into mountains and emerged covered in black dust, building a middle class 1 ton at a time. Now, the mountains are still
railroad
there.
workers
The
used
men
to
are
stay
gone.
in.
The town's Welch, war, eager, are hollowed out shells, boarded up storefronts, collapsed porches, homes literally sliding down hillsides because no one's left to maintain them. The poverty here isn't hidden. It screams from every crumbling facade. And the water is a symptom of everything else that's been abandoned. McDowell County's population has collapsed from over 100,000 in the 1950s to fewer than 18,000 today. The infrastructure was built for a boomtown. Now, with most of the tax base gone, there's no money to maintain it. Water lines are 60, 70, 80 years old. Leaks are constant. Some estimates suggest that 40% of the county's treated water is lost before it reaches a tap. Hundreds of residents have no water service at all, relying instead on mountain springs and wells, many of which are contaminated by decades of mining runoff. The county has been under state and federal water violation notices for years. Nothing changes. For families in the hollows, the narrow valleys between ridges, water means a hike. Literal hiking. Up mountain trails to natural springs, carrying empty jugs, filling them, and hauling them back down. Some springs are a quarter-mile away. Some are over a mile. In winter, the trails ice over. In summer, the springs sometimes run dry. One family described collecting rainwater in barrels, then boiling it on the stove. They've been doing this for 12 years. Their children, now teenagers, have never lived in a home with running water. They do homework by lantern light because the electricity is unreliable too. This is Appalachia in 2024. The springs these families rely on often run through or near old mining sites. That means exposure to heavy metals, arsenic, lead, selenium that leach from abandoned mines into the groundwater. The health consequences are devastating: elevated cancer rates, kidney disease, neurological problems. A 2017 study found that residents of Central Appalachia have a life expectancy comparable to developing nations. But the water isn't just chemically dangerous, it's biologically unsafe. Without treatment, spring water can carry parasites, bacteria, and viruses. Diarrheal diseases that should be historical footnotes are common here. The stench of poverty isn't metaphorical. It's the smell of water you're afraid to drink. The coal companies made billions from these mountains. When they left, they took the money but left the mess. And the government, federal, state, local, has done almost nothing to fill the void. Infrastructure grants exist, but applying for them requires expertise that bankrupt counties don't have. The state water authority is underfunded and overwhelmed. Federal programs focus on larger population centers where the political return is greater. McDowell County doesn't have
grade and junior high
It doesn't have a voice in Charleston.
They built a brand new one just up the road.
So it rots. Officials talk about economic revitalization and attracting new industry. But no industry is coming to a place without reliable water. It's a death spiral, and everyone knows it. An elderly woman in Welch, whose family mined coal for 3 generations, said, "The companies took everything from these mountains. The coal, the trees, the men. And when they were done, they left us with holes in the ground and poison in the water. Now, the politicians say we need to adapt. Adapt to what? Dying." My grandson asked why the water from the spring makes his stomach hurt. What am I supposed to tell him? That America forgot we exist. McDowell is coal country's ghost. But the next location isn't a ghosted as a crime scene that has been active for over a century. Number 4. Sand Branch, Texas. Sand Branch is 20 minutes from downtown Dallas, 20 minutes from Cleveland skyscrapers, luxury shopping malls, and some of the wealthiest zip codes in America. But drive south on a 2-lane road, past the last Starbucks, past the last streetlight, and you enter a different century. The road turns to dirt. The homes, if you can call them, that are patched together from plywood, sheet metal, and prayer. There are no water meters because there are no water lines, no fire hydrants, no sewers. The smell of wood smoke mixes with something fouler, the unmistakable odor of human waste improperly managed. This isn't a developing nation. This is Texas. And Sand Branch has never, not once in its 140-year history, had municipal water service. Sand Branch was founded after the Civil War by freed slaves. Today, it remains a predominantly black community of roughly 100 residents. And for 140 years, not a single drop of public water has flowed here. Let that sink in. This community has existed longer than the automobile, longer than commercial aviation, longer than the internet, and it still relies on wells, rainwater collection, and hauled water. Dallas County, one of the wealthiest counties in the state, has never extended water lines to Sand Branch. The poverty rate here exceeds 50%. Residents here know the weight of water. Literally, a gallon weighs 8.3 pounds. Fill a 5-gallon bucket and you're carrying over 40 pounds. Now imagine doing that multiple times a day, every day, for your entire life. That's Sand Branch. Families drive to fill stations, sometimes 30 minutes away, to fill tanks and barrels. They ration every drop. Laundry is a major event requiring planning and resources. Bathing is efficient in and out, no wasting. Toilets. Many homes have outhouses. In Texas. In the shadow of Dallas, children grow up understanding that water is not a convenience, but a chore, a cost, and a constant worry. The psychological weight is as heavy as the physical one. The wells that some residents rely on are shallow and unregulated. Testing has found bacterial contamination, including E. coli, and multiple sources. Septic systems where they exist often fail because the soil drainage is poor and the systems are ancient. When septic fails, waste pools. It seeps. It contaminates. Skin infections, gastrointestinal illnesses, and respiratory problems from mold exposure are common. One resident described a persistent rash that appeared after using well water for bathing. Doctors told her to stop using the water. She asked what the alternative was. The doctor had no answer. Here's where it gets infuriating. Dallas County has the money. Texas has the money. The infrastructure expertise exists. So why does Sand Branch remain dry? Because it's unincorporated. Because extending water lines costs money that the county doesn't want to spend on a community that doesn't generate tax revenue. Because the residents are poor and black and have no political leverage. Officials have made vague promises for decades. Studies have been commissioned. Meetings have been held. And nothing, absolutely nothing has changed. The message is clear. Some communities matter and some don't. Sand Branch has received the message loud and clear for 140 years. A lifelong Sand Branch resident, a woman in her 70s whose grandparents were among the original settlers, said this: "My grandmother used to haul water from a well with a rope and a bucket. I haul water from a fill station with a pickup truck. My granddaughter will probably haul water too. Nothing changes here. Politicians come, take pictures, shake hands, and leave." Once, one of them brought a case of bottled water like he was doing as a favor. A case. For 100 people. You know what that is. That's an insult. We don't want charity. We want pipes. We've been asking for pipes since before I was born. Sand Branch's apartheid American style separate and unequal 20 minutes from prosperity. But if you think that's the worst geographic injustice, wait until you see the scale of what's happening across the Navajo Nation. Number 3. The Navajo Nation. The Navajo Nation is the largest Native American reservation in the United States, 27,000 square miles spanning Arizona, New Mexico, and Utah. It's larger than 10 U.S. states, and it looks like it. The landscape is staggeringly beautiful. Red rock formations, endless desert, mesas that seem to touch the sky. Drive the dirt roads that connect the remote chapters, the Navajo equivalent of townships, and the beauty becomes a backdrop for devastation. Homes made of plywood and tar, sheep corrals next to structures without electricity, and everywhere, blue barrels, hundreds of them, thousands, the universal symbol of water poverty, line up like tombstones marking what should have been. Approximately 30% of Navajo Nation residents, around 40,000 to 50,000 people, lack access to running water. Not unreliable water, not contaminated water, no water at all. These are not temporary conditions. Many families have lived without plumbing for generations. A 2020 study found that Navajo Nation had the highest rate of water insecurity in the United States, by an enormous margin. During the COVID-19 pandemic, when hand washing was literally life-saving, thousands of Navajo people had no sink to wash in. The virus tore through the reservation with infection and death rates that exceeded New York City. Water poverty wasn't just an inconvenience, it was a death sentence. For many Navajo families, Water Day is a full-day event. They load empty barrels onto pickup trucks and drive sometimes an hour or more each way to a water distribution point. They wait in line. They fill up. They drive back over roads that barely qualify as roads, praying the barrels don't tip or crack. A single trip might yield 100 for 100 gallons, which must last a family of 4 or 5 an entire week or more. That's aggressive rationing. A Navy shower is a luxury. Washing clothes by hand is normal. Some families drink less water than they should to make supplies last, risking dehydration in desert heat that regularly exceeds 100 degrees. Children grow up understanding that water is scarce, precious, and never, ever to be wasted. Without running water, hygiene becomes impossible. The rates of respiratory infections, skin conditions, and gastrointestinal diseases on the Navajo Nation are significantly higher than national averages. Diabetes, already epidemic among Native American populations, is worsened by limited access to clean water and the reliance on sugary beverages that don't require refrigeration. Dental problems are rampant. And then there's the contamination issue. Decades of uranium mining on and near the reservation have left a legacy of polluted groundwater. Some wells that families relied on for decades have been found to contain radioactive material. People were drinking water laced with uranium. In America, in the 21st century, the federal government has a legal trust responsibility to provide for the well-being of Native American tribes. It's in the treaties. It's in the law. And for over a century, that responsibility has been systematically ignored. The Indian Health Service, which is supposed to serve Native communities, has been chronically underfunded. Infrastructure grants require matching funds that impoverished tribes don't have. Applications are Byzantine, approval processes take years, and projects die in bureaucratic limbo. The federal government built massive water projects to serve Phoenix and Los Angeles. It found money for dams and reservoirs that transformed deserts into cities. But for the Navajo, nothing. The message is unmistakable. Some Americans' water matters. Indigenous water does not. A Navajo elder living in a remote chapter near Monument Valley put it simply: "My grandmother walked 3 miles to get water from a spring. I drive an hour to get water from a tank. My grandchildren will probably still be hauling water when I'm gone." The government promised us everything in those treaties. Land, water. Protection. They took the land, they poisoned the water, and they protected nothing. Now they call us underserved. We're not underserved. We're abandoned. There's a difference. The Navajo Nation is the defining American tragedy, a shame so large it should be on the front page of every newspaper. But it's not. And if you think the situation improves when you move south to the Texas border, you're wrong. It gets worse. Number 2. The Texas colonias cross into the Rio Grande Valley of Texas, and you enter another world. Not Mexico, though it's close enough to see. This is America. Barely. The colonias and incorporated settlements stretching along the border are home to an estimated 0 to 500,000 people. Drive through places like El Cenizo, Cameron Park, or the dozens of nameless clusters of homes, and you'll swear you've left the United States. Paved roads turn to mud rivers when it rains. Homes are built incrementally, a room here, a wall there, from cinder blocks and salvaged materials. Raw sewage flows in open ditches beside where children play. The smell hits you before the visual does, that unmistakable stench of human waste. Baking in Texas heat. These are America's favelas. The comparison isn't hyperbole, it's geography. The colonias began forming in the 1950s and exploded in population through the 1980s and 1990s. Developer is a generous term for many of these predators sold cheap lands to low-income, often undocumented, families on contracts for deed. The catch: no infrastructure, no water, no sewer. No electricity, just dirt and a promise. Today, tens of thousands of colonia residents still lack running water. Many have never had it. Texas officially recognizes over 2,300 colonias, though the real number is likely higher. State reports estimate that at least 50,000 people in the colonias lack potable water access. Others have water service so unreliable or contaminated that it barely qualifies. This is not a blip. This is a system. Life in the colonias is defined by improvisation. Families collect rainwater in barrels during the rainy season and pray it doesn't run out before the next storm. They buy water from trucks that roll through, charging prices that seem reasonable until you calculate the monthly cost, often higher per gallon than what affluent Americans pay for municipal water. Outhouses are common. So are straight pipes, PVC tubes that carry raw sewage directly from homes into ditches or yards. Bathing happens with heated water from stockpots. Laundry is done by hand. Children miss school because there's no water to wash clothes or bathe. The daily grind isn't metaphorical. It grinds you down, day after day, year after year, until exhaustion becomes identity. The public health conditions in the colonias are frankly medieval. Standing sewage attracts flies, mosquitoes, and rodent vectors for disease that thrive in heat and filth. Hepatitis outbreaks have been documented. Rates of gastrointestinal illness are dramatically elevated. Skin infections, respiratory problems from mold and damp structures, and dental decay are endemic. And then there's the psychological toll. Children growing up ashamed of where they live, unable to invite friends over, bullied at school for smelling like the poverty they can't escape. The colonias don't just harm bodies, they break spirits. Texas has known about the colonias for decades. State and federal programs have allocated hundreds of millions of dollars to address the problem. So why are tens of thousands of people still living without water and sewer? Because the money never seems to arrive. Because county governments lack capacity to manage projects. Because residents, many undocumented, many distrustful of government, are hard to organize and easy to ignore. Because developers who sold this land were never held accountable, and the burden was left to people who can't afford lawyers or lobbyists. The colonias are a perfect storm of exploitation and abandonment, a bipartisan failure spanning administrations and decades. The result is a permanent American underclass living in conditions we condemn. When we see them in other countries, a mother of 3 in Cameron Park, who has lived without running water for 11 years, said, "People tell me to move. Move where? With what money? I work 2 jobs and I still can't save enough. This is my home. My kids were born here. We're American citizens, but we live like this isn't America." The rich people in Austin, they talk about Texas pride. Texas strong. Where's that strength for us? We're invisible. We only exist when someone needs a story, and then they forget us again. The politicians promise water every election, we're still dry. The Texas colonias are the blueprint of systemic failure, proof that American prosperity was never meant to be shared equally. But if the colonias are America's hidden favelas, then Loney's County, Alabama, is something even darker, the return of diseases we thought we'd eradicated a century ago. Number 1. Loney's County, Alabama. The Black Belt. Loney's County sits in the heart of Alabama's Black Belt. Named not for its demographics, though it is predominantly African American, but for its dark, thick, clay soil. That soil is the source of everything that's gone wrong here. Drive down the rural roads past cotton fields and crumbling antebellum architecture, and you'll see homes that look almost normal from the front. Then you walk around back, and there it is. The PVC pipe sticking out of the ground, draining raw sewage directly into the backyard. No septic tank, no treatment, just human waste pooling in the open air, mixing with rainwater, seeping into the soil where children play. The smell is what you'd expect: thick, organic, inescapable. This is what poverty smells like in 21st century America, and it's been this way for decades. Lowndes County is home to roughly 10,000 people, with a poverty rate exceeding 25%, one of the highest in the nation. An estimated 80 to 90% of households have failing or non-existent septic systems. The straight pipe method, piping sewage directly into yards or ditches, is the norm, not the exception. Why? Because the clay soil that defines the Black Belt doesn't absorb water. Conventional septic systems don't work here. They fill up, overflow, and fail within months. Proper wastewater treatment would require advanced systems costing $15,000 to $30. Zero per home, money that residents simply don't have, so they do what they can. They pipe it out and pray. The water isn't just scarce here, it's surrounded by poison. Imagine stepping into your backyard and dodging puddles of raw sewage. Imagine the humiliation of knowing that when it rains, your waste mixes with floodwater and spreads across the property. Imagine the constant vigilance required to keep children and pets away from the contaminated areas. Residents describe living with the smell so long they've almost stopped noticing. But visitors notice, delivery drivers notice, the kids at school notice when their classmates come in smelling like something no amount of bathing can fully wash off. The trauma isn't just physical, it's social, it's psychological. It's the daily reminder that you've been left behind by a country that claims to be the greatest on earth. In 2017, a study published by researchers from Baylor University found that 34% of residents tested in Lowndes County were positive for hookworm, a parasitic infection associated with extreme poverty and poor sanitation, virtually eliminated in the United States decades ago. Hookworm larvae live in soil contaminated with human feces. They enter the body through bare feet, travel to the intestines, and feed on blood, causing anemia, cognitive impairment in children, and chronic fatigue. This is a disease of the developing world, of places without sanitation infrastructure, and it's thriving in Alabama. The discovery made international headlines. For a few news cycles, the world was shocked that medieval diseases could exist in modern America. Then the attention faded, the hookworms remained. How does a county in the richest nation on earth have third-world parasitic infections? The answer is depressingly simple. Nobody with power cares enough to fix it. Installing proper wastewater systems for every affected home would cost tens of millions of dollars. Federal and state funding exists, but the application processes are complex, and rural counties lack the administrative capacity to navigate them. Grants come with matching requirements that impoverished communities can't meet. Private contractors don't want the work because there's no profit. Meanwhile, residents who can't afford approved septic systems face fines and legal action for their makeshift solutions, punished for a problem they didn't create and can't afford to solve. It's a system designed to blame the victims while ignoring the perpetrators. A grandmother who has lived in Lowndes County her entire life said this: "They found hookworm in us, hookworm. Like we're living in 1920, not 2020. The news people came with their cameras and their sad faces. They asked how we felt. How do you think we feel? Ashamed, angry, forgotten. They left and nothing changed. The politicians say they're working on it. They've been working on it my whole life. My grandbabies play in that yard. They know not to go near the pipe, but they're kids. They forget. And when they get sick, what am I supposed to say? That America is the greatest country in the world. And there it is, 7 communities, 7 American nightmares. From the agricultural fields of California to the Black Belt of Alabama, millions of people in this country are living without the most basic human necessity, clean water. We're told that America is exceptional. We're told that if you work hard, you can achieve anything. But what happens when you work hard your entire life and still can't turn on a tap? What happens when your children drink poison, your backyard is a sewer, and your government has decided you're not worth the investment? This is what happens. This is what has been happening for decades. And if history is any guide, it will continue happening. Because the truth is, fixing these problems would require money, political will, and most damning of all, an acknowledgement that the American dream was never meant for everyone. We send rovers to Mars. We can't send pipes to Alabama. That's not an accident. That's a choice. And until we choose differently, the hidden favelas of America will remain hidden, just the way some people like it. Thanks for watching. If this made you uncomfortable, good. It should.